If Olivia Bennet had listened to her instincts, she would have stayed home that Friday night, curled up on her couch with a blanket and a movie she had already seen 3 times. The city outside her apartment window buzzed with weekend energy, but inside, everything felt still, safe, predictable. That was how she liked it now. After her last relationship ended, she had rebuilt her life carefully, brick by brick, promising herself she would never again give someone the power to quietly walk away with her heart. Love had not exploded or burned in her past. It had faded, and somehow that had hurt more. Her phone buzzed again. Mia. 3rd call in an hour. Olivia groaned and finally answered. Mia's voice rushed through the speaker, full of excitement. He's already there. You cannot cancel now. That would be cruel. I never agreed properly, Olivia argued, pacing her living room. You tricked me. I saved you, Mia corrected. You've been hiding for a year. One dinner won't kill you. Olivia stared at her reflection in the dark television screen. She looked fine, calm, composed, but her eyes carried that quiet sadness she tried so hard to ignore. What if it's awkward? She asked. It will be, Mia laughed. It's a blind date. That's the point. Now go. We're something nice. Live a little. The call ended before Olivia could protest again. She stood there for a long moment, battling herself. Staying home meant comfort, going meant risk. And risk meant feeling. She chose risk. An hour later, she stepped out of a taxi in front of a rooftop restaurant glowing with warm golden lights. The air was cool, carrying the smell of the city and distant rain. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she walked inside, her heart beating faster with every step. She gave the host her name, and within seconds she was being led to a table near the edge of the rooftop that the view stole her breath. The skyline shimmered. Buildings stood tall and proud against the dark sky. It felt like standing at the edge of something new, but he wasn't there yet. She checked her phone. No message, no update. 5 minutes passed. Then 7. Her chest tightened. Slightly, of course. Maybe this was the universe reminding her why she avoided these things. Maybe he had changed his mind. Maybe he had taken one look at her social media and decided she wasn't interesting enough. She was about to stand when a voice cut through her thoughts. Olivia. She turned. Daniel Reed stood a few feet away, slightly out of breath, one hand still holding his jacket. He looked like he had rushed up the stairs instead of taking the elevator. His hair was messy from the wind, and there was a crease between his brows that suggested he had been worried about being late. I'm so sorry, he said quickly. The driver got lost and I didn't want to reschedule. I really didn't. His honesty caught her off guard. It's fine, she replied, forcing a small smile. He sat down across from her, and for a moment silence hovered between them. Not heavy, just uncertain. He wasn't overly confident. He didn't flood the space with charm. Instead, he looked at her carefully, as if trying to read a book he didn't want to misinterpret. You look exactly like your friend described, he said. Olivia stiffened. Oh no, what did she say? That you pretend to be strong, but you're softer than you let people see. Her breath paused. That wasn't small talk. That was direct. Dangerous? Well, she said lightly. I hope she also said I'm not completely unbearable. He smiled, and it changed his whole face. She said you don't trust easily. The waiter arrived, breaking the tension. They ordered food. Safe choices. Nothing messy. Conversation began slowly. Work. Daily routines. The usual questions strangers ask to fill space. Olivia learned that Daniel ran a small publishing company. He built it from nothing after leaving a stable corporate job. He spoke about books with real passion, describing how stories saved him during hard times. He wasn't bragging, he wasn't showing off, he was simply sharing. When he asked about her job, she expected polite nods. Instead, he leaned forward. You design covers, Kay asked. So you're the reason people pick up a book in the first place. She blinked. No one had ever framed it like that. "I guess," she said softly. "I like making things look like they matter." "They do matter," he replied. Something inside her shifted. As the night went on, the awkwardness faded. She laughed more than not. She had in months. Not forced laughter. Real laughter that made her forget to be careful. Daniel admitted he once tried writing a novel and failed miserably. She confessed she still sketched buildings in a notebook. Like a teenager chasing a dream she was too scared to fully claim. "You should show your work somewhere," he said. "You talk about it like it's alive." She shook her head. "Not that brave." He studied her for a second. "I think you are. You just don't know it yet." The words settled deep. Dinner ended, but neither of them moved to leave. The city lights seemed brighter now, the air warmer. She realized hours had passed without her checking the time. That alone felt strange. Normally, on dates, she watched the clock like it was counting down to freedom. Finally, the staff began clearing nearby tables. It was late. They walked toward the elevator together. The night wrapped around them like a quiet secret. Her heart started racing again, not from fear, but from anticipation. She had been here before, that final moment, the decision point. He stopped near the elevator doors and faced her. "I'm really glad you came tonight," he said, voice calm, but sincere. She swallowed. "Me too." There it was, again that feeling. Not fireworks, not dramatic sparks, something steadier. Something that felt like standing at the edge of water, knowing you could jump, but unsure how cold it would be. The elevator dinged softly behind them, and then she did. Something reckless. Before her fear could build walls, before her mind could list reasons to step back, Olivia reached forward and kissed him. It wasn't planned, it wasn't perfect. It was quick and slightly uncertain, her lips brushing his in a soft, almost questioning way. For a heartbeat, she froze, wondering if she had made a mistake, but Daniel didn't pull away. His hand gently touched her waist, grounding her steady. The kiss deepened just enough to feel real. Not rushed, not demanding, just present, the world around them blurred. The city noise faded. There was only warmth and the quiet shock of connection. She pulled back first, breath uneven. "I don't usually do that," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked at her like she had just handed him something fragile. "I'm glad you did," he said. No teasing, no smugness. Just gratitude. The elevator doors opened again, reminding them where they were. She stepped inside slowly, her pulse still racing. As the doors began to close, her eyes held, and in that small space between closing metal doors and disappearing light, something unspoken passed between them, possibility. The ride down felt surreal. She stared at her reflection in the mirrored walls, her cheeks were flushed, eyes brighter than they had been in a long time. What had she just done? Outside, the night air felt cooler. She walked toward the street, her mind replaying the kiss over and over. She expected regret to hit her, expected anxiety. But instead, she felt awake. Her phone buzzed before she even reached the corner. "Daniel, text me when you get home safe." She smiled despite herself. In the taxi, she leaned her head against the window, watching lights streak past. It had only been dinner, only a kiss. But it felt bigger than that. It felt like the first crack in a wall she had built so carefully when she reached her apartment. She kicked off her heels and leaned back against the closed door, heart still racing. The silence of her home felt different now, less heavy. She typed a message, "Home safe." The reply came. Seconds later, "Good. I'd like to see you again." Soon? She stared at the words, her chest tightening not with fear, but with hope. And hope was dangerous. She changed into comfortable clothes and sat by her window, looking at the city. For the first time in a year, she didn't feel like an observer of life. She felt like a participant. Her mind tried to warn her. It reminded her how things had ended before, how love could slowly disappear without warning, how promises could fade. But her heart whispered something softer. This felt different. She didn't know Daniel well. She didn't know his flaws, his worst moods, his hidden fears. She only knew that when he looked at her, she felt seen, not admired, not judged. Seen that night, sleep came slowly. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the warmth of his hand at her waist, the softness of that unplanned kiss. Somewhere between doubt and dreaming, Olivia realized something she hadn't allowed herself to admit in a long time. She wanted more, and for the first time since her heartbreak, the thought didn't terrify her. It thrilled her. Olivia woke the next morning with the strange feeling that something in her world had shifted overnight. Sunlight slipped through her curtains, warm and soft, but her thoughts were sharp and restless. For a moment, she wondered if she had imagined the rooftop, the city lights, the kiss. It felt almost unreal, like a scene from someone else's life. Then her phone vibrated on her nightstand. She reached for it too quickly. A message from Daniel. Last night felt important. I don't want it to be just a nice memory. Can I see you again? Her heart beat hard against her ribs. No games, no waiting, no pretending he was too busy. Just simple honesty. She stared at the screen for a long time. This was the moment where she could pull back. She could answer politely, keep distance, protect herself. That would be safe. Instead, she typed, "Yes, I'd like that." The reply came instantly. Tonight, she laughed softly, surprised by how easily he moved forward, scared. Her a little, but it also excited her. That evening they met at a small cafe near the river. The sky was painted in soft orange and pink, and boats moved slowly across the water. This time, there was no awkwardness, no forced conversation. It felt like picking up a story that had already begun. Daniel brought her a book. "I thought of you when I saw this," he said, placing it on the table. It was a collection of architectural sketches from old cities. "You talk about buildings like they have souls." She ran her fingers over the cover, touched by the thought. "You bought this for me. I wanted to." No hesitation, no apology. They walked along the river after coffee, her shoulders brushed lightly. Every small touch sent warmth through her body. She told him about the first time she realized she loved design, how she used to draw houses as a child and imagine the lives inside them. He told her about the first book that made him cry, how it changed his path forever. The connection felt easy. Natural days turned into a rhythm. Morning texts, midday jokes. Late-night phone calls that lasted longer than planned. Olivia found herself smiling at her phone during meetings. She felt lighter at work. Colors seemed brighter. Even the air felt different. Daniel didn't overwhelm her with grand gestures. Instead, he showed up. Every time he said he would call, he called. Every time they made plans, he arrived early. Reliability felt romantic in a way she hadn't expected. One night, he invited her to his apartment for dinner. She hesitated for a second. It felt like a step forward. Intimate, real. She went anyway. His apartment was simple but warm. Bookshelves lined the walls. Papers were stacked neatly on his desk. A faint smell of basil and garlic filled the kitchen. "I tried cooking," he admitted. "That's terrible. We can order pizza." She laughed. "I like your confidence." Dinner was surprisingly good. They sat on the floor with plates balanced on their knees, talking about everything and nothing. Music played softly in the background. At one point, she looked at him and realized she felt comfortable, completely comfortable. That scared her more than the kiss had. After dinner, they stood by the window. The city glowed below them. He stood close behind her, his presence steady and warm. "You're quiet," he said gently. "I'm thinking dangerous." She smiled faintly. "This is moving fast." He didn't deny it. "Do you want it to slow down?" She searched her feelings carefully. Fear was there, yes. But stronger than fear was something else, a pull toward him. A desire not to waste time pretending she felt less than she did. No, she admitted, I just don't want to get hurt again. Daniel turned her to face him. His expression wasn't playful now. It was serious. I won't pretend I can promise forever, he said, but I can promise honesty. If something feels wrong, I'll say it. I won't disappear. Disappear. That word hit her deeply. Her last relationship hadn't ended with a fight. It had ended with distance, calls becoming shorter, messages arriving slower, love fading quietly until it felt foolish to keep. Holding on, I can handle truth, she said softly. I just can't handle silence. You won't get silence from me. And somehow, she believed him. Weeks passed. They spent almost every free moment together. Grocery shopping turned into playful debates about which cereal was superior. Rainy afternoons became excuses to stay in and talk for hours. He showed her the early drafts of books his company planned to publish. She showed him sketches she had never shared with anyone. Vulnerability grew between them like a living thing. One evening, Daniel confessed something that shifted the ground beneath them. I was engaged once, he said quietly. Olivia's chest tightened, but she stayed calm. What happened? Kay chose work over her. Not on purpose. But I kept telling myself I would slow down after one more deal, one more milestone. She got tired of waiting. There was regret in his eyes. Real regret. Do you still love her? Olivia asked, her voice steady. No, he said firmly. But I hate that I hurt someone who believed in me. She studied him carefully. He wasn't hiding from his past. He wasn't blaming her. He was owning his mistakes. That won't happen again, he added. I learned. Olivia nodded, but inside doubt whispered. People say that. They always say they've learned, yet he kept proving himself through actions. When work demanded his time, he told her clearly. When she needed space, he gave it without sulking. They spoke openly about fears instead of pretending they didn't exist. 3 months after the rooftop, they were inseparable. Friends began to notice. You're glowing, Mia said one afternoon. Olivia rolled her eyes, but she couldn't hide. Her smile, it's still new. New doesn't usually look that steady. That word again? Steady. One rainy Sunday. They stayed in his apartment, the world outside blurred by water on the windows. Olivia sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching the skyline. Daniel watched her quietly. You should do this full time, he said. It's not practical. Neither is love, he replied. She looked up at him. His tone had shifted. What? Are you thinking? She asked. He stood and walked toward her, sitting down close enough that their knees touched. I'm thinking I don't want to waste time. Her breath caught. What does that mean? It means when I imagine my future, you're in it. Not as a possibility, as a certainty. Her heart pounded loudly in her ears. Daniel, no, it's fast, he continued. But I don't believe in pretending feelings are smaller than they are. I love you. The words filled the room, heavy and powerful. She froze. Love. 3 months. Her mind raced. Was it too soon? Were they caught in excitement? Was this just intensity disguised as depth? But when she looked at him, she didn't see impulse. She saw clarity. I love you too, she whispered. The truth surprised her even as she said it. But it felt right. He exhaled slowly, like he had been holding that breath for days, and then he did something neither of them had planned. He reached into his pocket. Her heart nearly stopped. I bought this yesterday, he said, pulling out a small velvet box. I didn't know if I would use it today, but I knew I would eventually. He opened it. A simple ring. Elegant, not flashy. Olivia's world tilted. Daniel, I don't want, almost, he said, voice shaking slightly. I don't want to date for years wondering if this is right. I know it's right. I choose you. If you're scared, I understand. But I don't want to be afraid of something good. Her thoughts collided. Fear screamed that this was reckless. That fast love. burns fast, that she hadn't known him long enough to see his worst days. But another voice spoke louder. "You feel safe?" She thought about the rooftop, the river, the quiet promises, the way he never pulled away from hard conversations. She imagined walking away from this moment. The idea hurt. "Say something," he whispered. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. "Yes," she breathed. The word felt like stepping off a cliff and realizing there was solid ground waiting below. He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They laughed through tears, half shocked by their own boldness. The rain outside intensified, as if the world itself was reacting. But even in that joy, the tiny shadow lingered in Olivia's chest. What if they were rushing into a dream? What if real life, with all its weight and pressure, would test them in ways they weren't ready for? Daniel pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "We'll figure it out," he said, as if he could hear her doubts. "Not because it's easy, but because it's us." She held him back just as tightly. Fast love was dangerous, but losing it before it even had a chance felt worse. And as thunder rolled softly in the distance, Olivia realized that, whether this was brave or foolish, she had already chosen her path. There was no turning back now. The wedding day arrived faster than either of them expected. Olivia woke to sunlight spilling into her apartment, feeling a nervous flutter in her stomach. The morning air was soft, carrying the scent of rain from the night before. She stared at the white dress she had laid out the night before and ran her fingers over the fabric. It felt surreal, almost like she was watching someone else's life unfold. She had imagined weddings countless times in her head, in a sort of distant, romantic fantasy, but now it was real. The reality was more intimate, more tender than she had ever pictured. Daniel was already at his apartment when she arrived, his own suit neatly pressed, his tie slightly crooked as if in a quiet attempt at perfection. When he opened the door and saw her standing there, he paused, his eyes softened, almost vulnerable, in a way that made her heart squeeze. "You look perfect," he said simply. Not flashy words, not poetic declarations, just honesty. It was enough. The ceremony was small. Friends and family were gathered, but it was the closest circle they could manage. No one spoke louder than the gentle music playing in the background. The florist had kept it minimal white roses and soft greenery. The sunlight shone through the windows, painting the room in warmth. Olivia walked slowly toward him, her heart hammering. Every step brought memories rushing back. The first awkward smile at the rooftop. The unplanned kiss that changed everything. The late nights talking about fears and dreams that suddenly felt possible again. Daniel waited at the front, his hands trembling slightly. He smiled when he saw her, a mixture of nerves and pure love. It made her eyes water, and she had to blink rapidly to clear them before she reached him. They held hands for the first time in public that day, feeling the solidity of each other's presence. When they exchanged vows, there was no script, no pressure to be perfect. Each word was heartfelt. He spoke about how he had feared love before meeting her, and how she had changed him. Olivia confessed how she had built walls around her heart, only to realize he made her feel safe to tear them down. Tears streamed down faces in the small gathering, but the moment never felt overwhelming. It felt tender, real. Daniel slipped the rings onto their fingers with careful hands. When Olivia looked at the band on her finger, she felt a strange mix of disbelief and certainty. Somehow, in a whirlwind of months, she had landed in a place she never thought she would find again, and love that felt grounded, even in its suddenness. Life after the wedding was not perfect. There were moments of tension and worry. Daniel's publishing business demanded long hours, and sometimes Olivia felt invisible. Sitting in her apartment with the hum of the city outside while he worked late, she had to remind herself that love wasn't only in gestures or kisses. It was also in patience, understanding, and constant choosing. There were disagreements, small ones at first. Who should handle household chores? What to cook? What time? To wake up on weekends, arguments never escalated into shouting, but the silence afterward was heavy. Olivia occasionally doubted herself, questioning whether they had moved too fast. Could someone know another person well enough in such a short time to truly commit? Daniel, too, had moments of fear. He worried he might fail her, make mistakes, or revert to old patterns that had hurt others before. Yet each time doubt crept in, they talked. They didn't avoid the uncomfortable conversations. They sat on the couch, sometimes in the middle of the night, discussing fears and dreams, listening to each other without judgment. Slowly, the ordinary days began to build a strong foundation. It was in shared laughter while cooking, in quiet mornings, drinking coffee together. In the way Daniel always left her sketches untouched but noticed every detail, that trust grew. One rainy evening, Olivia woke from a dream that left her shaking. In it, she was alone, the city fading around her, and she couldn't find Daniel. Her chest tightened. Real-life anxieties mingled with dream fears. She rose quietly, still in her pajamas, and made her way to the living room where she found him reading at the kitchen table. His eyes immediately found hers. "I had a bad dream," she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. "I thought I'd lose you." He closed the book gently and set it aside. "You won't," he said firmly. He walked toward her and took her hands in his, warm and steady. "Not because life is perfect, but because I choose you. Every day, even when things are hard, even when we argue. I choose you." Tears came freely then. She leaned into him, allowing herself to feel the weight of every fear and the strength of every promise. That was the difference between love she had known before and this love. This was not only the thrill of a kiss or the excitement of sudden engagement. This was continuous, quiet commitment, choosing someone over and over, even in mundane moments. Months rolled into years. Their life together was full of small adventures and steady routines. Olivia painted again, finally exhibiting some of her work in a small gallery Daniel helped arrange. Daniel's company grew, but he always carved out evenings for them. They discovered the balance between ambition and companionship, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding, but always together. Even when life was ordinary, it was extraordinary. Olivia learned that love didn't have to be loud or dramatic to be deep. It could be a shared glance across the kitchen while he cooked dinner. It could be laughter spilling into the living room at a private joke. It could be the simple act of holding hands while walking down a street lit with city lights. Unquiet nights, they often sat together by the window, watching the city shimmer. Olivia would recall the first time she had kissed him, the rooftop. The soft uncertainty that had suddenly turned into possibility. She remembered feeling terrified and alive at the same time. It had been fast, yes, but that didn't make it shallow. It made it courageous. Years later, friends still asked her how they met. She smiled, remembering every detail, the hesitant smile, the warmth, the gentle bravery of that first kiss. "It started with a blind date I didn't want to attend," she would say. Her voice would carry a soft laugh, tinged with disbelief that such an ordinary choice had led to a lifetime. Daniel always added the truth behind the smile. It wasn't just a kiss or a date. "It was the first time I realized I wanted to choose her every day for the rest of my life." Some people said their love story moved too fast. Maybe it did. But Olivia and Daniel knew the difference between haste and courage. Sometimes the heart recognizes what the mind doubts, and when it does, it is better to leap than to wait for a perfect certainty. On warm summer nights, Olivia would sit with her head on Daniel's shoulder, her fingers intertwined, and she would whisper quietly, "I can't believe this is real." He would kiss her temple and murmur, "It is real. And I'll keep choosing you." They knew life would continue with its challenges. There would be disagreements, bad days, disappointments. But they also knew they had built something stronger than fear or uncertainty. Their love was steady. It was alive. It was brave. And it was theirs. The city lights outside shimmered like they always had, but now Olivia saw them differently. Each glow reflected moments of laughter, tears, quiet conversations, and shared dreams. The city had been the backdrop to their first kiss, the place where everything changed. And it had witnessed the beginning of a love that moved quickly, but lasted forever. In the end, Olivia realized that love was not the fast engagement, the wedding, or the fairy tale moments. Love was the quiet choosing, the daily presence, the courage to show vulnerability, and the strength to hold each other through ordinary days. That was the magic. That was forever. And every time she remembered that first night on the rooftop, that small kiss that started everything, she smiled. Fast love could be dangerous, but sometimes it could also lead to exactly what a heart had been waiting for all along. Olivia had chosen to leap. Daniel had chosen to wait for her to trust him. Together, they had chosen forever. And that was more than enough.